And I would like to tell you what's the plan for today before I tell you more where I come from. I will start with saying what is my connection to simulation and gaming. Then we'll have a look at the concept of flight simulators in organizations. I'll give you some examples. Then we will have a look at the burnout pandemic that is now that the world is suffering from now. And we'll have a look how can games as flight simulators help for effective team building and leadership development in those times of burnout, lost connections of teams in organizations. I come from the world of games and simulations used in trainings and team building activities for teams and managers. These are example pictures from the games that we run in our companies. These are big games, sometimes for 300 or 500 people at once. These are board games, but also role-play games, team building activities, any kinds of activities that people have to face some challenges together and together solve problems, together succeed, together go through some joyful moments of doing something together. We run, as I said, big games, small games for small teams, for the whole organizations, depending on the purpose. And that used to be games in that where people were meeting live in somewhere on site. But of course, when the pandemic came, we had to switch to online activities, online games, and it stayed with us because still people, very like we do today, we meet online and we need some online tools for collaboration and team building activities. So we have also online games that people play together. And we say that experience is not the best teacher, but evaluated experience is. That's why every game is followed by a debriefing session where people have powerful discussions, what they went through and how it could be of value for them as a team or as leadership or as a leadership team in their organization in the future. I'm talking about the company. I just wanted to show you the range of brands we have created since 2004. These are different brands, but they were all born out of love for gaming and simulation. I am involved in every of these brands. First of all, I'm very active as a consultant and learning designer in the Game Changers Academy. This is a company that designs development programs for leaders who are responsible for transforming their organizations. We also have a brand that does online games for international teams that are working remotely. It's called Assimilate. You can have an online game, play together, and have a powerful discussion about your team and your goals. Then we have something that has a complicated Polish name, Pracownia Gier Szkoleniowych. This is an organization that organizes team building sessions based on games and simulations for teams on site, joyful and strategic. Then there's a brand called Experience Corner, and then there you have games and activities for trainers and coaches. So as a trainer or coach that is in love with games and simulation, you can come to Experience Corner and choose a game that you would like to use in your trainings. And one of the last brands, it's the Competence Game, which is an online recruitment game where people play, and then this game measures their competencies and tells them how good they are in which competency that is important in real life at work. So these are different brands, and I'm involved as a learning designer, business consultant, and program director in some of them. So that's my background. And I'm a sociologist from my first background, and then a huge fan of gaming and simulation. One of the reasons I fell in love with gaming and simulation was ISAGA, the International Simulation and Gaming Association, which is one of the co-organizers, as I understand, of this series. I met fantastic people there who told me about the concept of management flight simulators. So games and simulations used for better management. And hereby I wanted to thank Vincent Peters, who was the first one to show me the world of games and simulation. Elizabeth Lay also, who is here and who I'm very grateful for many inspirations from Dornbirn in Austria, and also Dick Duke, Richard Powers, Dennis Meadows, Ivo Wenzler, Tiagi, and Willy Kritz. These are the people who showed me the power of gaming and simulations. And that's how I came about this article by John Sterman from MIT. This was an article from, I think, the 90s, so a long time ago, but an interesting concept where he described that actually managers are like pilots. They have very responsible tasks. They have to navigate their organization through complex, ambiguous, volatile, and changing world, very complex. But there's a difference between managers and pilots, said Sterman. He said pilots are very well trained. They spend a lot of hours in simulators before they go into the machine, the real machine, and take the responsibility for the whole crew and for all the passengers. They are trained in simulators where they failures, or they can experiment, they can make failures, and no one dies. And managers, they don't have this opportunity to train before they actually are thrown into the task, the responsibility, guiding their organizations. So his idea was, hey, let's have games and simulations as management flight simulators. That was his idea. And he developed many such management simulators where actually participants had to take decisions, a lot of decisions about their business, to understand the business dynamic, the company dynamic, the helicopter view of the business of the company. So those management flight simulators were games, decision-making games, allowing to understand what decisions should we take. And I observed through my years of using games and simulations, I also observed that there is also a need not only about what decisions should we take, but how should we cooperate together in an organization to implement those decisions. Because decision making is one thing, but then is the whole world of collaboration between people, in an organization, between departments, between countries. People have to collaborate together in order to implement the decisions they took. So I thought that management flight simulators is one thing, but then we need a collaboration flight simulators to actually make it happen. And I wanted to give you some examples because I am active with gaming since 2004, so it's almost 20 years, and I've seen a lot of teams and organizations playing. And I wanted to give you some examples of how games work as flight simulators of cooperation and collaboration in organizations. So let's move back to 2004. A long time ago, my first project, together with the people I created our business. 2004, and this was a game that was developed for city officials in a region south of Poland. And those city officials, like let's say 40 or 50 people, they were preparing to run a huge project in the region. It was about cooperation of small towns. They had to do something together. And they decided they would like to meet and get to know each other better and prepare for this cooperation in real world. And this was a negotiation game. The people were supposed. It was a role play negotiation game, and one of the participants, she got the role of a city mayor, and she was supposed to negotiate something very important with a different colleague. And it turned out she was she was in the game. She was a negotiator, and she was supposed to negotiate with her own boss from real life. And suddenly it turned out that she's really, really skilled in this negotiation. Everybody was really amazed how well she negotiates, how well she influences, how good arguments she finds, how perseverant she is, and how collaborative. And after this game, they played for 4 hours, and they were solving some crisis situation in this negotiation. They had a lot of fun, and they had the opportunity to learn each other better. But what happened, actually, everybody was so amazed with this negotiation skills of this lady, let's call her Monica. So everybody was really like saying, Monica, we didn't know that you are so skilled at negotiating. So they decided to give her tasks at her real job that were connected to negotiation more than she did before, because she had something completely different to do before they actually discovered this skill. So they said, we didn't realize you're so skilled. And that's why I'm telling this story, because that's at that time I realized that actually when people don't play, when they don't spend time in games and simulations, they have not much opportunity to see who's good at what, to appreciate one another, to see what contributions people give to the team and how they contribute to achieving goals together. So this aspect of gaming was really interesting. Wow, people can see what they're good at, and they can also share tasks and jobs according to this. So it's really, really powerful. So then another example that I've experienced, this is the New Commons game, designed by Richard Powers. Maybe some of you know it, maybe some of you use it in your lectures, trainings, or classes. This is basically a game that we use for intelligent team building, for teams to see how interrelated they are. But basically, it illustrates the social dilemma called the tragedy of the commons, meaning that people can choose in this game either very short-term, very competitive strategy, or they can choose a long-term and a difficult one, cooperative strategy. And very often, people in this game, in this experiment, they choose this short-term competition, which actually leads to depletion of resources, and they lose the game because they don't actually know that collaboration is a good strategy here. And I've experienced last year that was a session for directors from a public institution in Poland, very serious people, in suits with ties, very serious about their jobs and also very serious about this game. What they did is they actually lost, they depleted the resources, they didn't have any money in the game to earn. And one of the directors, really very serious and very concerned, raised his hand and he said, hey, but actually I understand that now that collaboration was a winning strategy here, but in real life, in all my education and in all my jobs, former jobs, no one actually showed me and explained me that collaboration is a good strategy, that is a winning strategy. Why did no one explain it to me before? He was really serious about this. This was his insight. This was key learning from this situation. At school, we were supposed to focus on our individual results. We were actually competing who will be the best to go to better schools and so on and so on. And then the same at our organizations. Why did no one explain it to me before? Said this serious director from this serious institution. And this was a second moment when I realized, wow, games are really powerful because people can experience something they don't experience in real life. They can experience collaboration. They can experience winning strategies that are strategies involving working together and connecting. We don't have it a lot in our, let's say, companies, corporations, organizations. We are isolated and we are used to compete. So that was a second moment of truth or moment of insight I had. And then the third one was also, I think, last year. This is a top team from a pharmaceutical company in Poland. Top 20 managers. They had a gaming and simulation day that was aimed at refreshing their perspectives on their business, like a little bit breaking the routines, and having some powerful conversation together about their team identity, who they are, and what would they like their organization to be. And the CEO of this team, of this company, after playing the games, he said this: I have never seen such energy in our team before. I am used to sit with you in those long strategic meetings. We are discussing things. We are very tired. We are overwhelmed with complexity, with responsibility, and we take no fun from what we do. We forgot that we actually are playing a very fascinating game here with our business. And I've seen this energy here in this game, playing with you guys. And I would like this energy to be with us on our strategic meetings, on our decision-making processes. Let's take it, because I've seen in the game how creative, how creative and full of energy we can be. So this was the third moment. I thought, my goodness, even a CEO of this huge company operating in many places in the world, even for him, games are something beneficial. Even for him and for his top team, this was a moment, a very valuable moment that gave them, those wings for an energy for their daily, very responsible tasks. So these 3 moments I wanted to show you because we're talking about those collaboration flight simulators. I've showed you situations where people really appreciated, wow, this was a flight simulator that prepared us for what is going to come for our teams and organizations. Why are the collaboration flight simulators so important today? Because they were always important. I told you about examples from different years, from different stages of my story with games and simulation. But today they are really, really important because we have, meanwhile, we have the burnout pandemic in organizations. What happened after COVID, during COVID and after COVID, it's still here. We have the comfort, I mean, statistically, of course, I'm talking about big organizations. Statistically, we have the comfort of remote work. And people say, oh, we don't have to commute. It's fantastic. I don't have to dress up. I don't have to go anywhere. I have my comfortable chair or bed and my dog here, and I'm happy. So this is this remote work that is happening. But at the same time, the statistics of mental health and burnout are really, really alarming. 50% of all job applications, this is just to give you the idea that how huge this this remote world is 50% of all job applications sent on LinkedIn concern remote work. 50% of all job applications sent by people as an answer to the job advertisements, but only 20% are of advertisements concern this remote work. So there's more people wanting to work remotely than actually jobs. On LinkedIn, of course, that's just a small sample. But at the same time, I hope, yes, at the same time, depending on what research you're referring to, but there's a lot of research. Also, I think the latest is from Deloitte from January this year. But depending on research, there's from 40 to 70% of employees declare feeling burnout in their current job. So it's a huge number. It's a really huge number. There's also research about people stating that their bad state of mental health influences their quality of their work. It's also about 60% of people admitting that the bad state of their mental health influences badly the quality of their work. There's also research. A very funny question was asked in one of the research: do you watch TV or some streaming platforms while you work? And more than 50% said, yes, I do. During my work hours in my remote work, I watch TV and streaming platforms. So these statistics show that we have really a huge problem with burnout. So the flight simulators and cooperation simulators, they are really important because actually people are isolated at home and they forget how to connect to other people. They forget how to collaborate with other people. This is another data that is interesting. This is from the US and a government report about the thing that is the most interesting for this topic today is the social isolation, which between the years 2003 and 2020, it increased of 24 hours per month. So it's a huge difference. 24 hours of social isolations per month, the difference 2020 compared to 2003. And social engagement with others is decreased of 10 hours per month. So we have the world of isolated people with lack of connections. And that's my question: how can games and simulations help in these times of lost connection? Because they help. I see it. I really witness it. After the lockdown finished, people want to meet. People want to play together. We have a lot of organizations begging for some interesting games that can bring people together and make them talk and discuss things openly on site. And why can they help and how? So let's refer to some latest research by Gallups. They were researching the reasons of burnout and what can we do with burnout, how can managers tackle this problem. And they found out in their research that supporting collaboration and helping to restore connections among team members, as well as focusing on strengths and talents, appreciating each other's contributions, and creating opportunities for people to interact and exchange experience, those lower the probability of burnout by 1/3. So if you want to help your people somehow get out of this dark burnout zone, you as a manager, you are recommended to support collaboration, focus on strength. So actually, organize a game to see what people are good at, because when they sit at homes in front of their screens, no one will know what they are good at, and they won't know too. And create opportunities for people to interact and exchange. So as a manager, you're highly recommended to follow it. And one of the simplest things is make people play together, because games provide all of this. They allow people to experience exchange, and they allow them to discuss in the games, after the games, before the games. This is a perfect moment to talk. they build a sense of togetherness. This is a nice term, sense of togetherness. This is something that was lost during lockdown, and there were some people describing how to rebuild the sense of togetherness. So games do it. They provide joyful and quality time together. Quality time is something I think we miss the most. I don't know what is your experience, but I experience a lot of meetings in my work, also in my company, but also with clients. A lot of meetings with people who have so many meetings scheduled in one day that when one meeting finishes at, let's say, 11:29, they say, sorry, I have to go, I have another meeting, because they have another meeting at 11:30, and you cannot finish a sentence, you cannot ask a question, because they say bye bye, and they just push the red button and they say, I have another meeting. So this is like a pandemic of of no quality time together, because we are constrained by those red buttons and the hours of next meetings. So and in the games you don't have this red button. You play, and actually you are in the flow state, which means you lose the sense of time passing by. What do games also do? They allow team and goal alignment. That's this fantastic opportunity to have a common activity, a common experience that allows you to talk about, okay, so how does it refer to our goals? How can we cooperate better? How can we align better? How can we achieve our goals more effectively together? As I told you this story about Monica, in games people can see each other's strengths, which they cannot when they sit in front of the screens, isolated with their dogs, even. But for the team, it's of no value. And it's also, the simple thing about games is that it's refreshing. That's the word our client used yesterday. I want them to play a game because it's refreshing. So this need of refreshing is something that people really need in this pandemic of burnout and actually lack of purpose, breaking routines. Yes, that's why we need those collaboration flight simulators. But as I told you, as I showed you this slide, where with those highly recommended actions for managers, those of you who are managers or coordinators or team leaders, you thought maybe, oh my God, I have so many things to do, so many responsibilities, and now I am also responsible to pay attention if my employees are burned out. I'm not a psychologist. How can I do it? And this really is a situation where there's a lot of expectations on managers. They have to be self-aware to be able to navigate with teams with this burnout problem. And there is this interesting thing, actually, because we said what games do for teams. Now I wanted to show you a little bit what games can do for leadership. How can leaders actually benefit from playing, and not only teams, but also how leadership can benefit from this. And this is a list of the 21st century leadership skills. It was a list created based on research by the Center for Creative Leadership. It's almost 10 years old, but I think it's still very actual. It's a list based on interviews with CEOs and executive managers from big organizations. And they were asked, what kind of skills do you need your top management to have? And they said strategic thinking, collaboration, system thinking, leading change, experiencing comfort in ambiguous, changing and volatile contexts, and learning agility. These are soft skills. These are not expert skills, like expert in one industry or a finance expert. These are very soft skills, showing how big the need for this self-awareness and consciousness of leaders is. Mm, and actually, that's what John Sterman said. We don't train managers to this. We expect them to have those skills, but where should they get it from? Because our schools, they 100 years ago, they looked like this. People were isolated, sitting, everyone behind each other, with the head in one direction of the teacher, the person with the biggest knowledge in the room. It was 100 years ago. Then, after the Second World War, something started to change, and in some places of the world, schools started to be more focused on interaction between people. These were these little flight simulators at school, where people could collaborate, experiment, talk, discuss. You can notice that the sitting of these kids here on the left side is completely different one than here. There's no one person from which you can learn, but you can learn, discuss together, and everyone's opinion is heard. So something started to change in how we perceive education and preparing people for life. But actually, statistically, I could say that all over the world, still classrooms look like this. It changes in some places of the world, but in others doesn't. In my country, for example, still too many classrooms look like this, like 100 years ago. And there are no flight simulators at school, or even then at the universities. Still, when I run games and simulations in classes at the university, students say, wow, really? Wow, what a great class, because no one uses games and simulations in their course, even in management. So that's what I wanted to say. How can we expect from leaders that they will have those leadership skills, and they will be aware how to navigate the burnout of their teams if we are still in this kind of education? There is this famous professor who actually explains also. His explanation about the levels of consciousness is very helpful to understand how should we train and develop leadership. Some of you may be familiar. Robert Keegan, he is from the Harvard Business School, and he says that actually every person throughout his or her life goes through different stages of their consciousness. When we are born, we are little babies. We are at the level 0 and 1. We are conscious that we are alive, but that's all. We do not differentiate the outside world from our needs. This is the first stage. Then we go later in life. We get into the age of 2 years old, and then we are in the stage where we have this consciousness that we want everything now. I'm hungry, I want to eat now. I'm sad, I want to cry now. I want to go out, I want to go out now. Everyone, if you have little kids age 2 at home, you know, this is the stage of consciousness now. Otherwise, I will be very, very sad. Then there's the stage when we go to school and we start obeying rules. We start internalizing rules. This is an important stage of development of our consciousness. But then what happens? We need to go to this stage where we choose what we want to do. We don't only obey, but we choose our values and our behaviors. That's the fourth stage of consciousness, according to Keegan. But actually, what we need from leadership is the fifth stage of consciousness. He calls it the self-transforming mind, which means we have to be really skilled in being able to stand, like to observe a situation from trying to forget about our ego, but really understand, to observe a complex situations from outside, and try to find good solutions, not for me, but for the whole organization. This is the 5th level of consciousness. And Keegan says that only actually not too many managers are there. Despite they're responsible for big organizations, they're still at level 4, meaning that they are very, it's important for them what is important for them, and they forget about the goal of the whole organization. They cannot forget about their ego and their goals. And this means that actually what should be done is train managers in a different way, not only make them learn new skills from during the studies, but also train those soft skills that are not so obvious. You cannot make an exam as easy as from other skills, typical skills, out of those skills. In research by Center of Creative Leadership, only 8% of really top and executive managers are on this 5th level of consciousness, meaning being able to tackle very complex, ambiguous situations, and with empathy and with this strategic thinking. Only 8%. So there's a lot to do, how to actually raise the self-awareness and consciousness of managers. And games can help here very much, because games allow leaders to observe yourself in a mirror, see how you influence others, understand your reactions, and be able to manage them. People who take part in many games, like leaders that take part in those leadership development programs based on games, they say that the value of playing games is comparable to being in projects together with other people. One lady said, actually, after those 5 games I've played with you guys, I have this experience of being in 5 projects. I actually could write in my CV that I did 5 projects with those people. I've seen how I influence them, how they react when I want something and I say it in a way, then they react very differently than my intention was, and I didn't understand it. But after playing 5 times, now I know how I should react, how I should talk, so people follow me. So this is like a nice playground for leaders to see how to influence others, how to make them follow you, how to adjust to the situation. And that's what I think, that if we have more leadership development programs based on games and simulations in organizations, we could have more aware managers, more people who can with more ease navigate all those problems of today's complex world and burnout employees. But also, I think what is worthwhile is use more games and simulations at schools as flight simulators, because this is something that really can help in this complex world that has a lot of tasks and problems to solve together, because we cannot solve problems like climate change or other serious problems of the planet being isolated, sitting in front of the computers and not connecting to each other. So I think gaming is a powerful tool, and the flight simulators on every stage of education, starting from kindergarten, schools, and then in leadership development programs, is something that the world could benefit from. Thank you very much. Let us stay in touch. Whoever wants to email me, there's my email. Normally I'm used, to run games, to be in a very interactive mode with people. Together I was out of my comfort zone a little bit, but I hope my story was something interesting for you, and I'm waiting for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So now I would like to request our participants if they have any question for our speaker. You can also post in the chat box. I'll read it out for you.
Yeah, I couldn't read while I was talking, so I would need some more time to see it. Yeah, I can't see the chat now. But feel free to say something out loud. Connect.
Dr. Elena or Mr. Jagdishwaran? No
Maybe
questions today.
Questions?
that's the 60% that are streaming something interesting now on Netflix or somewhere.
Okay,
Thank you.
I have one question. Can we use this flight simulator other than this education, leadership development education?
Can you say again? I had some lost connection.
Can we use this flight simulator for flight simulations for other than this leadership development programs for any other education purpose or suppose for engineering education?
Yes, basically that's, as I understand, that's the root of those management flight simulators. Engineering, logistics, finance, all those supply chain games, and they are still very good and very much used in management studies, but also in organizations. I was talking about this collaboration because sometimes it's in the business world and in management, it used to be not very much appreciated. People were sure that when we learn how to take decisions in this Excel file or see the big picture, understand the system dynamics, it's enough, and we take decisions, and the business will perfectly function. But then suddenly it turned out that there is something more than only decision making. There's also this organizational culture. So that's why this collaboration flight simulators, they are about how do we make the decision that we took happen? How can we together apply them? Mm-hmm.
So there is a question in the chat box that I teach marketing. Can you please suggest any simulation which I can use in my classroom?
For sure, there are a lot of, depending on what you want to teach, of course, which aspect of marketing. We have games that, for example, raise the awareness of how important it is to be client-oriented and client-focused, to really understand the needs of the clients and customers. So this game could be used, but also there are marketing simulations with decision making and budgets, those management flight simulators that are more data focused. If you wish, we can exchange ideas via email. What could it be?
Okay, so ma'am, next question is, have you seen a continuing increase in the uses of simulations for leadership training, or is it irregular?
I think it is stable. I didn't see a huge. I've seen an increase right now of games for team building, for teams to reconnect, to have this quality time together. Leadership is stable, although what I've noticed is that people in those leadership positions, in executive positions, they are very, very tired and bored of meetings where they have to sit, talk, use post-its, talk and talk for 8-10 hours. And they really, really appreciate when they have a game because it brings discussion forward more quickly. It gives them experience. It gives them life and hope. So I see there's stable need for this leadership development, but there's a need of a different tool. So not sit and talk, because this is what management is about. They need They want to have something refreshing and something dynamic.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next question is, what do educators need to know to use these flight stimulators effectively?
They have to know that they can't control everything what happens. This is, I think, one of the fears for lecturers and for trainers. They have the fear that when they use a game, people will be not controllable, so they will do things dynamically, and you have to be aware of the process and trust the process. That, and also this is a very important shift from understanding me as a teacher, that I come to say something to you, but using games is facilitating learning of participants, which means you ask more questions than you give lectures. Mm-hmm.
There's one more question. Can we have our children as teachers in becoming more playful at work? I also didn't get the question exactly.
Yes, I think I understand that children are a great inspiration for us, because they play and they learn from playing. Actually, that's how kids learn about the world. They just play. They build castles out of bricks. They build cities. They role play. And they are playful, and it is very effective. So I understand kids are a good inspiration for us adults, that playing is something that seriously teaches.
One last question. Does these games help organizations and companies only?
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Aditi, one more question is from Dr. Elena. That is, did you observe cases when participants did not want to play or act?
Did I observe if when people didn't want to play? That happens very, very rarely. And when there is a person that, because always there's someone who don't like playing games, what we do is we ask before we start the game, we have this little icebreakers and energizers so people feel more comfortable before the game. And there's one question always: who likes playing games, who doesn't? And there are some people who say, I don't like playing games, and we know beforehand that they don't like, so they are not so eager to start playing. But when we name it and we say, okay, it's okay not to like games, you decide, and they always stay. And because other people really get engaged and start playing joyfully, they join, because there is this rule of engagement, that if you see others doing something, you just join. So when there are people not wanting to play, they just see the majority who starts and they join. I remember even when we started the business in 2000, one of the earliest projects, I think it was 2007, and we had our first executive group that was supposed to play the game Slogan, developed by Dick Duke. They were senior managers from one of the top 5 consulting companies, and it, very serious people, all in suits, ties, and stuff like this. And they were supposed to play a game in which they were cutting out things out of paper and gluing them and sticking them. And I was like, will it work? Will it work? And I was so amazed to see those 50-year-olds serious managers running like kids to fetch scissors, to fetch glue, to negotiate with the client in the game. They were behaving like kids in a kindergarten, and they were playful, and they had a lot of key learning points from the game. It was a fun thing to observe.
So one last question. Does this game helps only the organizations and company and not otherwise?
Does this game help organizations?
Organizations and companies only.
Mm-hmm. Everywhere where there's a team. Organizations, companies, NGOs, organizations meaning NGOs, schools, Governments. We had clients from all over those organizations, all over the sectors. Citizens of a town. It helps everywhere where people have to do something together. It's a good flight simulator of collaboration and understanding what helps people to achieve goals together. But companies, of course, have the biggest budgets for this. I would be very happy that governments or city councils would do it more often for their citizens.
Any more questions? So with that, we come to the end of webinar. I now request Dr. Jigyasu Dubey, Coordinator, Center of Excellence in Simulation and Gaming, SBBB, to propose words of thanks.
Thank you, Aditi. I'm thankful to Ms. Jagoda for accepting our invitation, and thanks for such a wonderful and enriching session. We are also thankful to International Simulation and Gaming Association, Mary Kay, Dr. Elena, Dr. Lee for support in organizing this Pratiti 2023 webinar series. And our sincere gratitude to Dr. Upinder Dhar, sir, Vice Chancellor of the University, and Dr. Santosh Dhar, Rector and Dean of SBBB Indore, for their guidance and motivation. Our sincere thanks to our today's panelists, Dr. Lee, Mr. Jagdishwaran, Dr. Elena, and all other panelists who are present, and all the participants who make this webinar successful. I'm also thankful to Dr. Aditi Veda and all the members of COESG and IT team of the university for extending their support. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much. All of the organizers, it was a pleasure for me. Thank you very much.
So thank you, everyone. I request all the participants to please fill in the feedback form mentioned in the chat box to get their e-certificates. We'll be meeting soon with our next webinar. Thank you once again, everyone.
Thank you very much. And we can push the red button and switch to another meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good day or evening or whatever that comes to you in your time zone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.